So it's 4:02. We will start now. My name is Dmitry Ushamersky. I'm from Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab. I am technical committee chair for augmented reality and virtual reality. This is the last session of PTCUSER Technical Committee Open House. I was told to remind everybody to that we are recording this session, so you are recorded, and so let's start. So this is PTCUSER Technical Committee Open House, and the question is, who is PTCUSER? You guys all probably have seen those presentations. Since mine is the last one, I will kind of go briefly through all of this. PTCUSER is an independent organization. We are voice of customer of PTC users, people who use PTC software. We are recognized by PTC as official representation of PTC customers, and our mission, our statement is educate, advocate, and support. So let's talk about how we do those things. How do we advocate? So we meet with PTC executives and we discuss our issues. We are organized by technical committees, so we are organized by subject, and in each subject and in each technical committee we are standing up working groups. Working groups are temporary groups of people who are kind of joined by interest in certain functionality, in certain software, and we are trying to quickly work on providing some kind of solution in the form of a white paper presented to PTC or presented to technical committee to be presented to PTC. So we advocate through our events. Usually we are involved in the live works, and we have our own PTCUSER event, which is winter event. Next one will be in San Diego, California, if nothing else happens. And so yeah, I already said technical committees. So the technical committees, instead of reading through this slide, again, my presentation is the last one. So instead of reading this slide, I will share with you my story. So my first job was working for PTC. That was until 1997. And after that, I started working in the doing real work for the small to medium-sized company, and we had about 50 users. We were buying PTC software and we were paying maintenance, but I didn't feel like I can really express my opinion. I cannot talk back to PTC, and I cannot definitely influence them to do anything until I realized that there is an organization. At that time, it was called ProUser. And inside of ProUser, it was a technical committees. And I realized that I do need to be part of it. And I wanted to provide some feedback. And what technical committees do, not only for the user, from a user standpoint, which I just explained, that it basically gave me a voice, but from the vendor, from the PTC standpoint, it provides them with the pool of users who are very experienced, and they are representing a variety of industries. So as a software company, they cannot have mechanical engineers from the medical area working for them. So they have access to that through the technical committees. So at the technical, so aside from just communicating with PTC product managers and developers to improve the software, we are doing a lot of stuff in terms of, we are working on the documents, we are working on the white papers, and the way we do it, we organize people of similar interests to the working group. So if you are interested to develop some functionality in the in PTC suite of tools, and you have you basically would address it through a technical committee, and in the technical committee, if there is enough interest, we would group together a few people to work on the on that idea as a working group, and that working group, we have 3 types of working groups running usually. So one is PTC-led working group. So that's kind of ideal situation where our interests are meeting PTC interests, and we are working together. It's a mutual interest, so we can generate a working paper. We can help PTC develop this functionality. Another type of working groups which we stand up sometimes is where both PTC and PTCUSER and technical committee feel like there is a need for the certain software for a certain functionality, but PTC doesn't have resources or PTC doesn't have plan to develop something. So we would still get together in the working group, and we would create a white paper and present it to PTC and try to convince them of the importance of that. And that white paper would be presented to PTC, and they would decide when and how they're going to develop that functionality. And the third type is kind of when we have interest in the developing function of a functionality, but PTC doesn't have plans for this functionality. So in this case, we would still get together as a working group, work on a working paper, and try to find the solution outside of PTC, maybe with some PTC partners who can provide some customization or workaround for us. So that's basically how we are working in working groups. To fulfill our educate, advocate, and support mission, we are presenting webinars. It's a best way to really get together with peers in the industry and express, kind of share with them what your experiences are, and see what they're doing and how they're approaching certain issues. So we work on the life work agendas. As you can see in the life works, there is a PTC presentations, but also there is a customer-based presentation, and those customer presentations are usually going through us, through technical committees, and we are approving or disapproving those presentations before they are presented at LifeWorks, and much more. So TC is led by TC chair. We are running the TC. We are working on the agenda for the TC. We are discussing issues which involve our TC, my TC, this maybe if there is interaction with other TCs, we could reach out and we can work together. We are working on setting up those working groups, and we are definitely communicating with PTC. I see that on the list of participants, we have Jeff Kuhn right now and Mark Schutz. They are our product managers involved in augmented reality, virtual reality. So we are working with them to get to meet somewhere in the middle and work on the functionality which are interested both sides basically. So the technical committees, we have a couple of tools which we are working, which help us basically manage technical committees. One is the old tool which we were using for many years. That's a portal, PTCUSER portal. And the newer tool, I cannot say new, it's a newer tool which is provided by PTC, and you've seen the PTC community. So we manage membership right now of the technical committees on the PTCUSER, but the content, I guess, of our discussions and the working group structures and everything is in the communities right now. Communities are managed by Jamie Lee, and I think we will have some changes in the PTCUSER portal in the nearest future. So this is a list of all the technical committees which we have. Augmented reality and virtual reality is the first one. So it's not by importance, it's by alphabet. So what do we do really? In the augmented reality, actually with all the technical committees, we have twice a year face-to-face meetings. As I said, one is during or after, usually it's after LiveWorks. And the second one is the event which I mentioned, winter event, which we'll have, and next one is going to be in San Diego. In between those two meetings, we have monthly, usually it's monthly virtual meetings where we can look at the member briefings and discuss statuses for working groups and present white papers to PTC or have other discussions with PTC. This is a template which I am using for the member briefings. As you can see, it's pretty simple. You probably, the presentations is usually 10 to 15 minutes, and I think to put it together, it's less than an hour. So it's not a lot of effort, but it's very important. It opens the conversation about experiences which you have in your company, and you finding out kind of that you are not alone, and you are you will find somebody who is kind of either going through the same issues or already went through it, so you can have discussion about that, either how they solved it or discuss the process which people are using to address the issue. So we have right now 3 open working groups in augmented and virtual reality. The one which we spend some time on, most of the time on, is data optimization. So in data optimization working group, we discussed kind of, because of the hardware limitation, like HoloLens cannot open large assemblies, so we need to simplify the assemblies. We need to make file size smaller, make a number of entities smaller. So we worked through the design best practices. We created decimation process, and we looked at the different file formats, which are, some file formats are much smaller than others. And we worked with, we discussed with PTC of kind of acceptance of those formats. So the other two working groups are inspection and security and control. Not a lot of stuff done in that area right now, but I hope that we will keep working on that, and we will get somewhere with the two other working groups. So as I mentioned, the PTCTC working group on the community, there is a presence of it on the community. So if you will go to community.ptc.com and click on the PTC working groups, you will see that we have those AR/VR working groups listed there. And that's kind of where we have discussions about the AR/VR, and some content is listed there. And just the last page here is helpful emails. So we have Frank Striffler, Director of Technical Committee. I am Dmitry Ushanersky, AR/VR Technical Committee. We have Mayan, who is Director of Working Groups, Margie, who is President of PTCUSER, and Dan Glenn, Preeti Gupta, the PTCUSER portal information. And PTC Community Manager is Jamie Lee Bunton, who is doing a great job organizing that community portal. And with that, I will open floor for the questions. And I don't know, we have a couple of things we might discuss here, but I don't really know if it's a good place to do that. So I first, actually hold on with the questions. I would want to ask Mark and Jeff if they have something to add to what I just said.
Yep. So my name is Mark Schütz. I'm a Vice President of Product Management at PTC. I'm responsible for the Vuforia solutions. And I really like working with the TC since I'm doing this probably almost a decade now. In my 15 years at PTC and almost 10 years in product management. And it's always a great source of input and feedback. And yeah, you get grounded by seeing how people really work with your technology, right? And what we think it is, and sometimes what it is actually not. And so we really, really value your feedback and speak up. And I can only encourage you to yeah, share all the information, the concerns, the asks in the communities. And we are happy always happy to work with you to make you successful with our technology.
All right, any questions now? I don't see anything in the chat, or do we have chat?
It's going to be a pretty easy meeting, huh, Dimitri?
I guess it will be easy if there are no questions. So, and I don't see a lot of people who I don't recognize on the participants list. So can I ask, Mark, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
So we had a couple of conversations about file formats supported for AR/VR.
Yep.
And obviously the one which I'm going to ask is GLCF.
Yep.
And you said that there is a plan for it?
There is. So there's it's an interesting topic, and I think Jeff, who's on here as well, spends the majority of his time right now to work through those things, because what we are seeing obviously is that there are two file formats which are really, really interesting for delivery on mobile devices, and GLTF is clearly one of those. And we tend to make GLTF our delivery format for communicating basically everything to the mobile devices or the digital eyewear. That doesn't mean that GLTF is the ideal format to do the authoring process. And in fact, it is not, because a lot of information are already stripped out when you convert your CAD data into GLTF. So it loses a lot of information and metadata, which you would like to have when you actually author procedures. So we're still looking what we can improve there to do to optimize that part of the authoring and the delivery pipeline. But ultimately, on bringing it to the mobile devices, GLTF is currently our favorite.
Yeah, it's always best. It's always best to have the highest fidelity 3D data in the editing process when you're actually authoring content, and then reduce it down to just what you need for delivery. Because there are parts of the CAD data that are useful during the authoring process that you don't necessarily need when you deliver it. So we're trying to balance the best format for the best use case in the production pipeline.
Can you give us time frame?
After today.
So
after today, you said?
Yeah.
I think you wanted to say sometime after today.
Yes.
I'm fairly confident that it happens this year. So, but Dimitri, your question is it on the delivery or is it actually on an import of GLTF?
It's not import. I'm not interested in the imports in GLCF files. I'm interested in the export. Yeah, showing it as GLCF.
Yeah, the plan is really to use GLTF. We are solidifying a couple of those things right now for the next quarter, for our work, what we do next quarter, and I hope we can make a move next quarter towards that. But within the next 2 quarters, we should have that as a delivery format.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fairly clear, right? We in the world of laptops and desktop workstations, Creo View as well as GAT are great formats, but they are not great for delivering it to mobile devices. They were invented before. I think I said it in our last meeting, right? Both of those formats were invented before the first smartphone came out. So whoever expects that they run on a smartphone flawlessly is mistaken. So
just you cannot beat size.
Exactly. So yeah, USDC and GLTF are the probably go-to formats for the next couple of years on mobile devices. And yeah, we need to make that move.
Okay. I mean, we would love to use PVZ files, but nobody else is using that. That's unfortunate.
Well, it's pretty big user base. It's but it still doesn't make sense long term to do this on mobile devices.
So the other thing we discussed is the Pixies as a decimation tool. And I think you guys were telling us that that's kind of where PTC is going also. We
put a couple of proof of concepts in with Pixies, and this looks fairly good. We haven't, it's not finally done. Let's say it this way. But obviously, it's a good tool for optimizing data when it goes towards the delivery, right? If you can convert it at the final stage after everything is authored into GLTF, and then you optimize it on the way out for creating model targets as well as optimizing the data which runs on the mobile device. This is the workflow we are working on.
So you are just planning to kind of have not the partner with Pixies, but tell users that the Pixies is a okay tool to disseminate the model.
You can do this today, Dimitri. You can take Pixies, get your own license, and do this. What we are trying to do is putting it in the pipeline so you would never see any, and you would never worry about data optimization, right? It's a complicated task. That's why we have a group here on it, and a working group, and everyone is struggling with this, right? And but the real challenge with data optimization is if you throw real life data in. There's a lot of bad modeling practices in this data. There's a lot of converted data, imported data, data which have changed over the generations and reused. So it's messy. And finding a recipe file which optimizes for a truck equally as for a toothbrush is really difficult. And that's the ultimate challenge, right? Figuring out how far can we push the boundary of automation at that point, so you don't have to do this. And that's really the challenge we are facing right now, and which we are tackling right now, to take the user as much out of the loop as possible in the data optimization, because it's a messy task no one wants to do. And it also prevents us all from scaling this, right? You from creating more experiences, and obviously us in the same way of having more adoption.
But is there a plan to partner with Pixies?
Yes.
And again, the time frame?
It's active right now. So I don't know. Hopefully within the next quarter or two as well. I expect all of this to happen in this year. There's no doubt about this.
Okay.
That's very interesting. That right there made this whole session worthwhile.
I'm glad you participated. Yeah, we're looking into that data optimization challenge since like multiple years, from day one on when we started with AR. And there were multiple different options which all didn't work out as we wanted it to be. Because as I described it, building this into a pipeline is extremely difficult.
All right, you answered 2 of my questions. Anybody else?
Mark, this is Nick. What about whether it's Creo, Illustrator, whatever, like animation support within the AR experiences? And what are you thinking about as far as a pipeline for that?
Yeah, from a pipeline perspective, that's another really interesting challenge, right? So what you want to do ultimately is have maximum reuse. And to have maximum reuse, you basically need to break up the steps or have the animation itself contained in a way that you can reuse them and apply them to similar objects, right? If it sees a screw, there's only 2 things you can do with a screw. You can screw it in or unscrew it, right? So there's a lot of those things you could actually think about. How can we train a network that detects the screw in a step and knows what animation to apply? So we think about this way in the pipeline, that you can reuse artifacts of it, right, to make it scalable, which is extremely challenging. And obviously, Jeff can tell you more about this, because this is I don't know, the last decade you worked on this, right? On that problem, on reuse illustrations and animations, and this is something we look at it. How could we break this down to the context itself, to the content delivered, and to the task on hand, and what are typical actions? Which actions can we standardize, and then how can we apply this? It's a pretty awesome graph which comes together for every assembly and task. And then the other real interesting point of animations is actually the skill set of who is executing it. Right? If I've never done this before, and I don't know how to hold a wrench, maybe you should show me the wrench and how to hold it and how to apply this. If I have done this 100 times, I don't even want to see in which direction I turn the screw or the bolt. the only thing I want to see is actually where is it. So there's that whole level of scalability which we are looking into for augmented reality instructions, and how do we separate this so we can have this on different levels. Obviously, we want to reuse what you have, right? So we did this for Creo Illustrate. There are others as well. It's not the highest priority to reuse any kind of other instruction tools, but we're standardizing a lot of those things. So there might be a simple way going forward. Jeff, anything I missed?
No. And part of that, falls in line with the idea of the right information. Well, the right information isn't just about the technically correct information, but it's what level of information does that user need? And so we're looking at this holistically, not just as animation or not animation, but what information does that particular user need to do their job? Do we know that they're a seasoned veteran, or do we know that this is day one and they don't know anything, and so we have to hold their hand? Because one of the problems with animation is the concept of making someone feel dumb. Because you're showing them that they don't know how a screw goes in a hole. Well, some people need that information, some people do not. So, making sure that we're not making people feel like they don't know what they're doing. And not too insignificantly, it takes time to watch an animation. It doesn't really take time to glance and see, these are the 4 bolts I want you to work with. So there's a balance there. Not everything should be animated, but if you need to show a technique, absolutely animate it. But techniques are usually specific things as opposed to general things. So, but we're looking at that whole concept and how those different pieces interact with each other to make sure that the people have the information they need without interfering in what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I fully appreciate what both you and Mark were saying about that. It's the level of information and what appropriate. If I take that to a high level and say, and I'm not so much thinking about a technician or whatever, but let's say I have an instrument that I'm designing that has a camera on it that has a field of view, and I want to see that field of view as the camera is turning, as where it's hitting on an object, the surface of an object. I want to see that animation, right, in that play, real world, in an AR experience, as opposed to seeing it maybe just on 2D image. But so that's what I was thinking, like in animation. Plus, if I take this even a step further and I think about all the analysis tools, and I want to see the flow, I want to see the CFDs, I want to see the airflow, I want to see all of that stuff in action on it within the AR. That maybe not so much as animation as it is, I want to see those tools, those other tools that are interacting with the CAD model, right? They use the CAD model as its source in the materials and the information about it to know how to behave. I'd like to be able to see those at some point. I'm not saying, oh gosh, got to have those tomorrow. No, I'm just saying, when you guys think about this stuff, what's your vision? What are you thinking about?
So it sounds like you're talking more about something similar to a design review type capability, where I can see the operation of the piece of equipment to understand if parts are interfering with other parts.
Right.
If I've told the camera to pivot 90 degrees to the left, but at 70 degrees it interferes with another part or something of that nature.
Right.
As opposed to end user type stuff.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like you're talking about anyway.
Yeah, and it's for the general consumer, not for the person who knows how to run those tools, right? It's for the person who wants to know how that object's supposed to work, but doesn't know how to design and run the analysis tools, right? So they're not going to go in and see it, but this way they could see it, just like you or I, maybe a layman who has nothing to do with that, can understand if it's going to work or not.
Luke, do you want to take this? Is Luke still on?
Yeah,
anyway, you were right, Jeff. As far
sorry, I was having trouble getting off mute. What was the question? I apologize.
So we discussed a little bit of simulation results visualized in augmented reality. And obviously what Jeff and I described is more like procedural guidance to maybe use it, to inspect it, to assemble it, how do we apply actions there. But there's also the animated, let's say, simulation content for clash detections or things like this. And I was wondering if you want to take it or leave it to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can at least kind of give my perspective on it. You know, we have been investigating. So, and by the way, for those who don't know, I on the CAD, the Creo product management team, and so I deal specifically with Creo AR Design Share and kind of anything AR that relates really to Creo, which currently is AR Design Share. So I mean, we have in the past, I've looked into you know, being able to show simulation results and so forth. You know, to be honest, it's not super high on our priority list, but that, you know, I'm definitely happy to kind of talk through more of those types of use cases and understand them better. I think at the end of the day, you know, the demand for it, at least, you know, when we had looked into it, was not super high, at least in comparison to some of the other things that we wanted to work on. So, you know, at this point, from a kind of a Creo perspective and being able to expose that, there's nothing in the works, you know, currently, but that's not to say that can't change.
It was fascinating, Luke, right? When we looked into that, the majority of the cases were more like showcases. So we haven't really found many people saying like, this would actually make my design process better if I can put this on the physical object. I can learn something which I couldn't learn in VR or on the screen itself. And that was actually fascinating to me as a takeaway. And then when you talk to the people, it's like, what do you do? And it's like, yeah, we're going, I don't know, we put this thing into an expo hall and show off how awesome the airflow is when X, Y, and Z turn, so it looks cool. It's like, yeah.
I mean, it's exactly right. It looks really cool, but when talking with customers who were making the request, it was very difficult to figure out, okay, what does AR provide other than kind of this cool factor, which, you know, we're not super interested in pursuing if that's the only thing. What does AR really provide that just looking at it on a screen doesn't? And there were some compelling cases. I'd have to go back and look. I can't quite remember off I think there was one company I was talking with that was looking, you know, they were designing filters, air filters or water filters, whatever. And so it was the benefit of AR or VR from that perspective was it allowed them to actually kind of, if I remember correctly, kind of change, basically sort of become a particle and actually, you know, instead of seeing it kind of one-to-one scale, they would actually sort of follow it almost like a magic school bus type of scenario and follow the flow lines that way. So definitely interesting, but again, I think, you know, I'm not going to say that there isn't value for simulation results in AR, but it definitely seems to be more of this looks really cool than something that from an engineering perspective is strictly necessary.
What would be your case, Nick?
Well, just my case is that who was it, Jeff, that said like design reviews, right? But I'm with you. I understand, and I appreciate you sharing what you learned when you talk to the other customers and stuff. Just like, you know, we have a process today that either they've been doing for years and it suffices for what they want to do to get those decisions made, and they're not seeing any value. So we also have to, if you know Dimitri well enough, you know that we don't do production of anything. So we're kind of at a disadvantage when it comes to, oh yeah, let's put in a new process because we do this 500 times a year and it's going to really, we can see how it saves us. When we build one spacecraft, it takes us 3 years. You know, it's kind of tough. Now we built some other things on the side, but I was really looking to gain knowledge from, okay, what might be the industry doing in this? And you addressed it, right? You're saying there really is no big push for it right now.
Yeah, for simulation, I have to say it looks, we showcased it, was it last year or 2 years ago at LifeWorks? with
the Cirrus aircraft.
Yeah.
Well, that and the snowmobile.
It looked pretty stunning. There's no doubt about it. And that's how we wanted to trigger the discussion, right? And when Luke had a discussion with more customers, and there was nothing which we could scale. We could actually say like, okay, if we invest our R&D resources here, we make a dent for a good amount of customers. And
I don't know, this isn't my business, but I would imagine if somebody's designing stuff, wind tunnels and whatever, and they go, man, that's expensive to build something like that, especially at scale for something if you're doing big. I'm like, boy, if I could convince myself that performance through the analysis tool, seeing it in an augmented or mixed reality kind of mode, maybe I don't have to build that facility and maintain that facility. But I don't know.
I think you can actually simulate a lot, right? And you can get extremely close these days. To your results. But the question is, do you need to overlay it on a physical object in I don't know, real scale or not real scale, whatever, or would you just look at it in real size in VR? And that's actually the question, right? Is it an AR or is it a VR use case?
Yeah.
And I see there's a lot more as a VR use case, to be honest.
Right. All right, thanks. Thanks for talking about it.
All right, anything else we want to address? I just, speaking of those animations, one of the cool things you just showed during your presentation, Mark, the model of, I think you were replacing car and truck and the airflow, which you were showing. So that's kind of animation. And, but again, yeah, I agree that it's a coolness effect, but I can do much better with the simulation tools.
So what we did in this case, Dimitri, is an interesting point, right? We used, I think the Unity has a particle filter which you can use and it blows out some airlines. And we wanted to showcase how this reacts in real time if it tracks an object which gets in the way of the airflow, right? And the technology we actually built is how do we track that thing which is getting in the way? And so when we put it was a Lego car into that airflow, we detect the Lego car from any angle, from 360 degrees. It doesn't matter how you look at it, we detect it. And then we know exactly how it looks like because we have the CAD model and have a trained neural network based on that CAD model to detect it and track it. And we extended the technology to be able to track multiple of those objects simultaneously. And that's what I wanted to show off with that part of the technology enhancements. The airflow is literally just to show that we can track something getting in the way. So the tracking of the thing getting in the way was the important part. The airflow just the gimmick to visualize is much easier.
All right.
Yeah, but
any other? Yeah, go ahead.
I think what you've probably seen in the presentation is that we're working on a lot of those things until the end of the year, and I couldn't even mention all of them. But I wanted to, and I hope that everyone who had a chance to look at it got a good idea of what we are working on and why we are working on those things and how this is ultimately coming together. I'm pretty excited. I talked with the team through this quarter just yesterday. So actually the next quarter what we are doing, and then seeing what we probably can deliver until the end of the year. And this is pretty exciting when you see all of this coming together. At least I'm pretty excited about it.
And all of this will be on the Atlas platform or still available as, so I'm pretty excited about Atlas platform, but at the same time, the nature of what we are doing cannot really get that excited about that. So we still need on-prem server and we still need to control our designs.
Yeah, it's going to be on the Atlas platform. So we are working obviously on Atlas to have additional certifications I had a longer discussion yesterday, actually, how long it would take to get Atlas to be FedRAMP certified. I mean, we have the SOC 2 Type 1 and Type 2 certifications from an Atlas perspective. From the Vuforia perspective, it's SOC 2 Type 1, and we should have the Type 2 certification at the end of the year for the part which sits on top of Atlas. So that's exciting. Those are pretty high standards, and we dedicate a lot to security and actually keeping your data safe. I know for some of you, especially in the aerospace and defense industry, we need to be in the GovCloud and FedRAMP certified, which is a pretty intense process. But we are committed to get there. We will not get there in the next couple of months, because this is a longer project. It at least takes a year to do this, but we are committed to doing the work. We wanna give you all the flexibility, keep you on the latest tools without any issues, and keep your data safe.
Good.
So we will need to address it with our InfoSec. All right, any other questions? So we'll kind of finish that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody who stayed longer. And PTC guys, Mark, Jeffrey, Jeff, Luke, thank you. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good
Thank you.
job.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.